Hey guys, it's Kevin with the new warehouse here. I'm at Momentum 2023. We are in Phoenix with Manhattan Associates, and I am joined by Miles Tether from Pet Supplies Plus and Blake Coram from Manhattan Associates. He's a director of product management over there, right? On the more on the warehouse management side. So we are going to talk a little bit about the anatomy of a modern warehouse. So, traditionally, not too long ago, we would say a warehouse is an old concrete building, which is boxes going in and out of it. But it's become so much more in the past decade. It continues to evolve as well. So, when we talk about a modern warehouse, Blake, what would you say Manhattan's view is of a modern warehouse?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's definitely a couple of implicating factors when you think about a modern warehouse, what we would consider a modern warehouse, and so not the least of which would we call is a unified solution for a warehouse, right? And what we've done from a Manhattan Active perspective is really provide a unified application that infuses labor with slotting, with warehouse, with transportation, et cetera. Because if you think about any of those solutions in a silo, you're never going to get the sum of all the parts, right? And so as you become a unified solution, you can actually truly understand real time how the warehouse is executing and how your labor is performing, how your slotting needs to be moved, how your transportation is impacted. Then really all of those solutions, the tide raises all boats, right? All those solutions become better through those unified approaches. The other piece that I would say is that a modern warehouse solution, certainly as we've learned, in recent years and recent times, really has to be adaptable, right? And so largely speaking, it really needs to be a cloud native solution so that you can adapt to the changes in the environment over time. When we saw what the pandemic was, large labor shortages and things of this nature, or very significant supply chain disruptions, and being able to pivot and react and provide new innovation and new functionality in those areas on a quick turnaround timeline was certainly something that we think will be a continuing need in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you hit so many great points about what a modern warehouse looks like and the things that are involved to make that happen and bring your warehouse up to the next level. So obviously at Manhattan, you guys are bringing that tech and that future state software and things to enable that and make that happen. So we have Miles with us, who's a customer of Manhattan, right?
That's
Pet
correct.
Supplies Plus. So tell us a little bit about from your perspective. I've heard a couple things about Pet Supplies Plus on the floor out there and ways that Manhattan has really helped you guys to improve in different ways. So, but tell us, I guess, when you first started to engage with Manhattan and you started to look at your warehouse operations and start to think about how do we bring those operations into today and beyond. What did that entail and what did that look like in Pet Supplies Plus eyes?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is take a step back to your comment about the older, big block buildings with product that comes in, and with what you said, Blake, which is how do you now create an environment where you can leverage the synergies associated with having clear and actionable visibility to the flow of product through that particular building. And I think it's that vision that Manhattan has been able to deliver on with their Manhattan Active Warehouse Management, or MAWM, and the entire active portfolio to include yard and transportation. We are also big users of the labor management module and slotting module, up to and including the team member engagement and gamification capabilities. So from our perspective, what we are doing is using the Manhattan application with their vision to be able to bring those synergies and competencies to our distribution centers such that we can get those types of benefits and, quite frankly, make it such that we are accurately, timely, and efficiently flowing product through our distribution center, ultimately to our stores and our customers.
Very interesting. And I think, going back to that traditional state, right? I mean, what would you say as now someone who's gone through this journey of modernizing their warehouse operation and utilizing Manhattan? I mean, what would you say to, somebody that's out there listening and, they're still operating in a traditional way and, they're saying, things are working for us, right? I mean, why would we go modernize? Why would we go through all these steps and journeys?
Yeah, so what I would say is while things may be working with any historic or legacy warehouse management systems, especially those on-prem type versions, eventually they will become out of date, unsupported. You'll need to upgrade. and chances are at the time they were originally deployed, there were, a material number of modifications or enhancements that
Right.
were made to them, which creates a lot of overhead technical debt that has to be managed on an ongoing basis.
Mhm.
What Manhattan has done with MAWM is created a cloud-based versionless WM that is highly configurable
Mm.
with extensive API capabilities that allow an end customer like us to re-engineer our business processes and leverage the configurability to minimize
Okay.
the number of changes or enhancements, extensions that are needed. And because it is cloud-based and there's quarterly code deployments, features and functionality that used to take, half a year to a year before a customer like us had the opportunity to take advantage of it without modifications,
Right.
is readily available. And as our business grows, evolves, and changes, the configurability of the application allows us to be able to react to those much quicker than we would have been able to with legacy or historical WMS applications.
Very interesting, and I think so much of the modern warehouse too is like you said, is very, being able to react in the moment and being real time in that sense. And you mentioned the cloud-based platform there. So Blake, talk to us a little bit about how the Manhattan Active is that cloud-based platform, and what does that really mean for the modern warehouse, and what does that mean for the customers who are utilizing that system?
Yeah, there's a number of impactors there for sure, but just to take a step back and understand what we mean when we say Manhattan Active, this is a journey that we started really almost a decade ago in 2013, 2014 timeframe, where we started redeveloping first our Omni solution on a net new Manhattan Active platform, net new technology, which was entirely component driven, API first. And so what that means, and then of course, then we delivered WM and transportation and
Right.
allocation, quite a number of our solutions now in Manhattan Active. But each of those solutions now, right, is 100% cloud native. And so what that really translates to is it's versionless.
Mhm.
So from as you were saying, Miles, right? Every 90 days we're delivering that new functionality, and so I think you're being generous with saying a year, right? I think in the old on-prem world, most customers would upgrade every maybe 4 or 5 years on the fast end of things. So if you had a great idea and you gave it to us and we added it immediately, even if we did the very next release, you're still talking 3 or 4 years until you get to actually adopt that, right?
Yeah.
We're in the current model, we're talking 3 months at its fastest. So the dynamic nature of that kind of innovation adoption is just unparalleled. The other thing, as you mentioned, right, is being versionless. Is that there is no more upgrade process. So
Right.
whatever extensibility you add or whatever feature functions you're leveraging, you can leverage this in perpetuity. The last piece that really cloud native solutions offer is the scalability factor, right? And so from that perspective, if you think about when you had to buy on-prem, you're building the church for Easter Sunday, right? You're saying, hey, whatever my massive holiday is, whatever my highest throughput, I have to have these many cores, this large of a database, et cetera, et cetera. And the reality is from a cloud solutions, you only have to scale to that during those certain periods of time, and then we can scale back. And that's all part of your subscription model as well. And so we can react to when you do have higher demand, proactively spin up more copies of each of the components you're leveraging, react to that need, and then scale back down when you don't. Right, and so it's very beneficial from a number of senses from that regard as well. So certainly it's been a game changer with the API first piece. Just to call that out, two key points there. One being, what Miles hit on is that with those APIs being exposed, extensibility becomes much more, call it natural or fluid for customers, because the architecture allows you to go ahead and make those changes. Right, if you need your own custom logic to interject with certain points, you understand and have documentation on all of our base available APIs, which is in the thousands at this point. But the other piece to it then is that we can now compose our solutions in more unique ways, because they can all interact with one another, and they all speak the same language, for lack of a better analogy.
Yeah.
And if I may just add on what Blake said, we are living proof of what he just walked through.
Yeah, I can hear what you're talking about.
So
I'm thinking maybe you're working for Manhattan.
Well, we were the first company to go live with MAWM.
Yeah, I heard about that, yeah.
So some of the things with volume as an example, we more than doubled the volume through the first distribution center due to the pandemic and several other things 3 weeks after we went live.
Oh, wow.
So here we had all of these great plans for a stable flow, and Fido and Fifi eat the same amount every day, so it's pretty predictable. We go live, and all of a sudden, we almost double the volume through the building.
Wow.
So we got to see firsthand exactly how that system does ramp up and everything. We are now up to 4 distribution centers on MAWM, and part of it with the versionless quarterly code drop. In my past, with multiple distribution centers, having every facility on the same version at the same time is always a challenge.
Yeah.
We get an email that says quarterly code drop went in, it's available, everything's done. Our VP of supply chain says, okay, all distribution centers on the same version. I mean, it's literally that
like
simple.
That.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it's such an interesting thing because, like you said in your example, in just 3 weeks, right, your volume just doubled out of nowhere. And I think that's so much of the supply chain that we see now, and especially from the warehousing standpoint, the orders are just increasing exponentially. And it only makes sense that those updates or things are happening exponentially and faster too, to keep up with everything that's going on. And we look all around, and there's so much tech out there that's happening from a robotics, automation perspective as well. But underlying all that is the software to be able to make everything operate. And like we saw this morning in the keynote with the kind of the orchestration and the music in the beginning, right? I mean, kind of orchestrating all that and bringing that together under one system makes so much sense for that unified supply chain overall. But I'm curious when we look at a modern warehouse, I mean, so much of the focus, and it's always been the case in warehousing, has been the labor that's actually driving that, right? So I want to talk a little bit about the labor in the modern warehouse and what that looks like. And I think I heard yesterday a little bit about Pet Supplies Plus and how you've been utilizing the labor management system. So can you talk to that a little bit and tell us how that's kind of benefited you from the labor perspective?
Yeah, what I would say is that we were already using the labor management module as part of the earlier on-prem version.
Yeah.
What Manhattan has done with the active application, they've extended that for not only the same functionality, but they've added the team member engagement and gamification capabilities in there.
Right.
And in our environment, what we do is we have a base rate of pay for 100% engineered standards.
Okay.
And then we have a very material increase in that hourly rate for someone that performs at 110% above standard. We also have for 120% above standard. And we have a very material one for anyone that performs at 140% above standard. So what the new engagement version of labor management has been able to give us is not only continuing that with our team members, but now having real-time actionable notification to say, Miles, you need to pick it up. You're not, at 110. By the way, Kevin, you're at 110, doing great. You got a shot at 120. And oh, by the way, Blake's blowing it away at 140. And you can do that.
Up to Blake, don't worry.
Yeah. Well, Blake paid me to say that, but you want to make sure he was the highest in productivity. But in all seriousness, it gives us the ability to have that level of interaction and communication with our team members, as well as a system to earn points or whatever a particular company calls it. And team members can trade those in for everything from swag and shirts and days off and everything else.
Shirts, I will say.
Yeah. So again, the labor management piece has really given us another tool in our labor management capability that wasn't readily available in historical systems.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because, we talk so much about the labor shortage aspect, but then there's the whole side of the retention aspect, right? Which I think from what you're saying, I mean, bringing those types of things in, I mean, certainly giving that incentive-based pay can certainly help to retain those employees and give them motivation to push further. Like I said, I want to be Blake, right? So, I certainly want to push forward, whether, it's just for the bragging rights or for a little extra money picking there. But, I think it makes so much sense to bring that type of technology in and see how do we make, these employees work in a more productive way, and also how do we track that as well from a visibility standpoint.
Yeah, another critical component of the productivity piece is that in historical WMS systems or legacy on-prem systems, whatever vernacular you want to use, typically you had to memorize shortcuts. There was a learning curve.
Right.
90 days to 100% engineered standards was not uncommon. Some facilities were a little more, some a little less. What we found is that with the Zebra TC52 devices and the graphical interface that's built in, it's like giving a 6-year-old an iPad almost.
Right.
It's to the point that we have been able to drive that time to 100% productivity standard down into the 60 to 65 day range. So we're actually able to onboard and bring team members up to a very reasonable productive standard, much faster than we were with some of the older systems. And that in and of itself, especially in this day and age with labor and turnover and staffing up for volumes and everything else, it has a critical impact on the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those interfaces make a ton of sense because, it's such an important thing. And I'll say from seeing some of the demos here at Momentum, I mean, that user interface is such a critical part of what Manhattan is doing. So I know we talked briefly about this yesterday, but before we wrap up here, I mean, can you tell us kind of just the importance that Manhattan is placing on that user interface to do the types of things that Miles was just talking about?
Yeah, there's a number of aspects to that, but not the least of which is we have an entire dedicated team now. We have for a number of years now with Manhattan Active, 100% focused on UX and end user usability, right? And so whenever we're developing new feature functions and capabilities, we're always ensuring that if there is an end user impact, that's brought to that team's attention. They're reviewing it, they're providing comps. We also go through a number of cycles especially with new UIs and things of this nature, with customers, right? We'll come up with a comp, go show it to them, demo it, and ask for their feedback, right? I mean, one of the things we did recently was around yard management, as we announced earlier today.
Yes.
On main stage. Got a great session on it tomorrow. But one of the big things there is, of course, that new digital twin visibility UI around your yard, right? And we went through 3-4 different mock-up iterations with customers and end users, right, to really get their feedback on how that should look, what type of information is critical to them, et cetera. And so any of those kind of new features, right? It's not just about just the execution. Certainly, execution is key, right? But if the end user it takes too long to get up to speed on it, or it's too many clicks to get to what they need, the information that they need, right? But it's not going to be a great end user adoption experience and story. And ultimately, it's going to impact user acceptance, performance, productivity, et cetera. So there's a number of tangible reasons why we do that, but it's certainly at the forefront of all of our innovation now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a key thing. And like we were talking about, I mean, it makes so much sense to enable that user to be able to utilize the system faster in a better way, and get that uptime right away, like Miles touched on. So when we look at the anatomy of a modern warehouse, we're definitely focused on ensuring that you're empowering those employees to do a better job, help to retain them. And it's not all about robotics and automation up front, right? It's about getting those systems in place that make sense foundationally, to be able to build upon that and really allow people to do what they need to do and harness all that data in a place that can be seen easily and easily manipulated and be able to take action right away versus waiting and doing things in real time. So Blake and Miles, thank you so much for joining me on the live today here at Momentum 2023, and be sure to tune in tomorrow as we'll be talking again here on the live stream.
Thanks.